When morning arrived, the physician entered carrying a bowl of herbs and a strange-smelling liquid. "It begins today," he said. The gorilla drank the mixture without hesitation. Almost immediately, warmth spread throughout his body. At first, the sensation was pleasant. Then came the pain. It started in his hands. His fingers twisted and stretched. His palms changed shape. Every bone seemed to shift beneath his skin. The pain was intense, but the gorilla endured it. By evening, the changes were visible. His hands looked less like those of a gorilla and more like those of a man. The physician allowed him to stand before the mirror. The gorilla stared in amazement. "It is working," he whispered. The physician smiled. "Yes, but this is only the beginning." On the second day, the transformation spread to his feet and legs. His posture changed slightly. Standing upright became easier. The third day brought even greater changes. Large patches of hair began disappearing from his chest and arms. His body became leaner and more human in appearance. Every evening, he rushed to the mirror, eager to see the progress. The excitement inside him grew stronger. On the fourth day, his shoulders narrowed. His muscles reshaped themselves. His face remained unchanged, but everything below his neck was transforming rapidly. The gorilla could hardly contain his happiness. For years, he had dreamed of becoming human. Now, he could see that dream taking shape before his eyes. By the end of the fourth day, he spent hours imagining his future. He imagined wearing clothes. He imagined walking openly through the village. He imagined having a family of his own someday. The physician noticed the growing excitement. "Do not lose focus," he warned. "You are progressing well, but the journey is not over." The gorilla nodded obediently. Yet deep inside, a dangerous feeling had begun to grow. Impatience. The closer he came to achieving his dream, the harder it became to wait. And patience, as he would soon learn, becomes most difficult when success is almost within reach. The fifth day arrived with astonishing progress. When the gorilla awoke that morning, he immediately noticed something different. His body felt lighter, stronger, more balanced. He rushed to the mirror. The reflection staring back at him nearly stole his breath. Almost all of the thick fur that had once covered his body had vanished. His chest looked human. His arms looked human. Even his legs now resembled those of an ordinary man. For several moments, he simply stood there in disbelief. Tears filled his eyes. The impossible was happening. When the physician entered later that morning, he found the gorilla smiling from ear to ear. "You seem pleased," the old man remarked. "Pleased?" the gorilla laughed. "I have never been happier." The physician nodded. "Good. But remember, happiness can become dangerous if it makes you careless." The gorilla promised to remain careful. Yet as the day progressed, he found himself staring constantly at the small window high above the wall. Beyond that window lay freedom. Beyond that window lay the world he desperately wanted to join. He imagined walking through the village streets. He imagined people greeting him as one of their own. He imagined never having to hide in the forest again. The more he imagined those things, the more difficult the waiting became. That evening, Adewale visited. The farmer was amazed by the transformation. "My friend," he said, "you look incredible." unforgettable. The gorilla grinned. One more day. 2 days, the farmer corrected gently. The gorilla frowned. The farmer noticed. You must be patient. I know. Do you? The question lingered after Adewale left. That night, the gorilla struggled to sleep. Every hour felt like an eternity. Every minute seemed longer than the last. By dawn, he was exhausted from anticipation. When the physician arrived on the 6th morning, the final major phase of the transformation began. The old man carefully applied special herbs to the gorilla's neck and face. The final changes will happen today and tomorrow, he explained. The gorilla nodded eagerly. The physician looked him directly in the eyes. Remember your promise. I remember. The physician wasn't fully convinced. For the first time since the process began, he felt uneasy. The transformation was succeeding perfectly, but success often creates its own danger. Sometimes the greatest obstacle is not failure. Sometimes it is excitement. And the gorilla's excitement was becoming impossible to control. By midday on the 6th day, the transformation had reached its most dramatic stage. The gorilla could hardly believe what he saw when he stood before the mirror. Everything below his neck had become completely human. His shoulders, his chest, his arms, his hands, his waist, his legs, all of it looked exactly like that of an ordinary man. Only his neck, face, and head still retained their gorilla features. The sight overwhelmed him. He touched his arms repeatedly, hardly believing they were his. A laugh escaped his lips, then another. Soon he was laughing uncontrollably. I am almost there, he whispered. The physician had gone into the forest to gather the final herbs needed for the 7th day. Before leaving, he had repeated the warning once again. Do not leave the room. The gorilla had agreed. At the time, he meant it. But now, standing before the mirror, his emotions began overpowering his judgment. Tomorrow. By this time, tomorrow. The words echoed endlessly inside his mind. He paced around the room. Then he danced. Then he laughed again. Hours passed. The excitement grew stronger and stronger. Finally, he glanced toward the high window. An idea entered his mind. A terrible idea. I won't be gone long, he told himself. I'll just celebrate for a little while. His heart pounded. Part of him knew he was making a mistake. Another part convinced him everything would be fine. After all, he was almost human already. What difference could a few hours make? The thought seemed reasonable in the moment. Without allowing himself time to reconsider, he dragged a table beneath the window. He climbed onto it, then onto a chair. Then he squeezed through the narrow opening. The instant he emerged outside, warm sunlight touched his skin. For a brief moment, the world seemed brighter than ever before. The gorilla threw his arms into the air. He felt free, victorious, certain that his dream was already accomplished. Without hesitation, he began running toward the village. He did not know it yet, but the very first ray of sunlight that touched him had destroyed everything the physician had worked to achieve. The transformation was no longer progressing. It had stopped forever. And the gorilla was celebrating a victory he had already lost. The moment the gorilla reached the village, he felt as though he were floating on air. Never in his life had he been so happy. For years, he had dreamed of becoming human, For months, he had worked toward that dream. Now, seeing his nearly transformed body, he was convinced that nothing could stop him from reaching the finish line. He rushed into the village square, laughing loudly. The few villagers gathered there stared in shock. Before them stood a strange creature with the body of a man and the head of a gorilla. Some stepped back in fear. Others stood frozen in amazement. But the gorilla paid no attention to their reactions. He was too overwhelmed by joy. Raising both arms high into the air, he began dancing. He spun around the square. He jumped. He clapped. He stamped his feet against the ground. Then he began to sing. I will become human being. 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 By this time tomorrow, I will become human being. His powerful voice echoed through the village. People emerged from their homes to see what was happening. Children ran after him. Market traders abandoned their stalls. Within minutes, a crowd had gathered. The gorilla danced through every street he could find. Again and again, he sang the same song. I will become human being. 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 By this time tomorrow, I will become human being. Some villagers laughed. Some cheered. Others exchanged worried glances. The gorilla interpreted every reaction as support. His excitement only grew stronger. He danced beneath the blazing sun. He danced past the wells. He danced past the market. He danced past the farms. The entire community seemed to become his stage. Meanwhile, far beyond the village, the physician was returning from the forest. His basket overflowed with rare herbs needed for the final day of the transformation. The old man walked carefully along the path, satisfied with the progress that had been made. The gorilla had followed every instruction. Everything was proceeding perfectly. Or so he believed. Then, a faint sound reached his ears. Singing. At first, he ignored it. But as he drew closer, the words became clearer. His heart skipped a beat. The voice sounded familiar. Very familiar. The physician quickened his pace. The singing grew louder. A terrible feeling settled in his chest. And when he finally reached the edge of the village, he saw something that made him stop dead in his tracks. There, dancing beneath the sunlight, was the gorilla. The basket nearly fell from the physician's hands. At that moment, he knew the transformation was ruined. For several seconds, the physician simply stood there in stunned silence. The herbs in his basket suddenly felt heavier than stone. Everything he had worked for, every preparation, every sacrifice, every step of the transformation, all of it had been destroyed. The gorilla continued dancing until he noticed the old man standing in the road. Immediately, his face lit up. "Doctor!" he shouted happily. He rushed toward him. "Look at me! Look how much I've changed!" The physician said nothing. The gorilla laughed. "By this time tomorrow, I'll finally be human!" Still, the physician remained silent. The gorilla's smile slowly faded. Something was wrong. The old man's face carried no joy, only sadness. Deep sadness. "Doctor?" the gorilla asked nervously. The physician slowly set his basket on the ground. "My friend," he said quietly, "what have you done?" The question struck the gorilla like a slap. I only came out to celebrate. The physician closed his eyes. You left the sacred room. Only for a short time. You stepped into the sunlight. The gorilla's confidence began to crumble. I thought it wouldn't matter. The physician looked directly at him. It mattered more than anything. Silence fell between them. The crowd that had gathered nearby became unusually quiet. Everyone sensed the seriousness of the moment. The gorilla felt fear rising within him. What are you saying? The physician sighed heavily. The condition was not a suggestion. The gorilla's hands began trembling. The 7 days were necessary. No, the gorilla whispered. The transformation was incomplete. No. The moment sunlight touched your body, the process ended. The gorilla staggered backward. His knees nearly gave way. Please tell me you're joking. The physician shook his head. Tears filled the gorilla's eyes. But I only had 1 day left. Exactly. The physician's voice cracked slightly. 1 day. The gorilla fell to his knees. The reality of what he had done finally struck him. He had not been defeated by an enemy. He had not failed because the process was impossible. He had failed because he could not wait. 1 more day. Just 1 more day. That was all that had been required. And now, it was gone. The crowd watched silently as the gorilla buried his face in his hands and began to weep. For the first time since the journey had begun, he understood the true cost of impatience. The village square remained silent as the gorilla cried. No one laughed. No one mocked him. The sorrow in his voice was too painful to ignore. For several minutes, only the sound of his weeping could be heard. Finally, Adewale arrived. Someone had rushed to inform him about the commotion. When he reached the square, he immediately understood what had happened. His heart sank. The physician's expression told the entire story. The farmer slowly approached his friend. The gorilla looked up, his eyes red with tears. "I've ruined everything," he said. Adewale placed a hand on his shoulder. The simple gesture only made the gorilla cry harder. "I was so close." "I know," the farmer replied softly. "I could almost see my future." "I know." The gorilla turned toward the physician. "Please," he begged, "give me another chance." The old man looked at him with compassion. If anyone understood his pain, it was the physician. He had watched the gorilla endure 6 difficult days. He had watched him dream. He had watched him hope. But some mistakes carry consequences that cannot be undone. "I am sorry," the physician said. "There is no second process." The gorilla lowered his head. The words shattered the last piece of hope he had been holding. For a long time, nobody spoke. Then, the physician finally addressed the crowd. "There is a lesson here," he said. The villagers listened carefully. This gorilla did not fail because he lacked courage. The physician pointed toward him. He did not fail because he lacked determination. The crowd remained silent. He failed because he celebrated before the journey was complete. Many villagers nodded thoughtfully. The physician continued. Sometimes success requires one final step, one final sacrifice, one final day of patience. His eyes settled on the gorilla. You were closer to your dream than you realized. Fresh tears rolled down the gorilla's cheeks. The physician gently lifted his chin. Never forget this lesson. The old man looked toward the villagers, and neither should any of you. Years later, people still told the story of the gorilla who almost became human. Parents shared it with their children. Teachers shared it with their students. Farmers shared it with young workers. And every version ended with the same lesson. Many people lose their greatest blessings not because they are incapable of success, but because they abandon patience when success is only one step away. The gorilla's dream had been within reach. Only one day remained. But one day of impatience was enough to change his destiny forever. And so the tale of the gorilla, the farmer, and the physician became a timeless reminder that patience is often the final bridge between a dream and its fulfillment.